Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As we heard today, the Minister of Government and Consumer Services has introduced second reading of Bill 156, the Alternative Financial Services Statute Law Amendment Act 2015. And as the Minister indicated, alternative financial services include an array of financial services offered outside of traditional banks and credit unions. They include payday loans, check cashing, and rent-to-own services. Mr. Speaker, this important law proposes to amend existing legislation to protect consumers who use alternative financial services providers, that is, providers other than banks and credit unions. We have consulted widely before bringing forward the legislation before you today. We spoke with community agencies, consumer advocates, credit counselors, debt collectors, municipalities, credit unions, the banking sector, the alternative financial services sector, including payday loan lenders, the financial services industry, and consumers. From those consultations, we know that some people do not have access to a lower-cost source of credit when they have urgent financial obligations, when their income falls short of expenses, or have limited financial assets. We also know that they need to have access to these alternative financial services so they can meet their urgent obligations. These urgent financial obligations, Mr. Speaker, include paying the rent, paying bills, buying groceries, and paying for unexpected expenses such as car repairs. We also heard alternative sources of credit can be harmful to consumers by putting them further into a cycle of debt and financial hardship. We explored further. We established a panel with representatives from community agencies, consumer advocates, credit counselors, and the payday loans industry. The panel did its own extensive research before recommending a number of ways to strengthen payday lending in Ontario. Their findings and recommendations were posted on the regulatory registry for the public to share their views on payday loans. The message to the government was clear. That message, Mr. Speaker, was that the government can do more to protect users of alternative financial services, and specifically users of payday loans. The ministry also held focus groups with payday loan users that year. Mr. Speaker, many borrowers considered borrowing from family, accessing loans, or tapping their credit card before choosing to use payday loans. They told us they chose payday loans because at the end of the day, these loans were easy and available. They are also an important source of credit for many people in this province. In the absence of access to lower-cost credit, they want to see payday loans continue to be made available in the marketplace. And, Mr. Speaker, they asked us to consider changes that would strengthen the protections that already exist for payday loans in our province. Some of these things people asked us to consider are longer terms and lower costs, a reduced cost of repaying the loan earlier, and the option to pay back loans in installments. Mr. Speaker, we explored this further. We wanted to make sure that we got it right. Last year, ministry staff visited 6 communities across Ontario. They spoke with municipalities, agencies, and consumers on topics including rent-to-own, installment loans, payday loans, check cashing, remittances, and debt collection practices. During these discussions, payday loans emerged as a popular focus of conversation. Stakeholders told us that stricter regulations were needed for payday loans and rent-to-own services. Mr. Speaker, it became clear to us that the marketplace for alternative financial services is changing, and that those in the marketplace and those using the services had expectations they wanted us to meet. Our government decided that it was important to expand the scope of our new proposed legislation. Strengthened protection for payday loan users are an important part of this new proposed law. But we propose to include the broader alternative financial services marketplace. The proposed law includes provisions related to cashing of government checks, rent-to-own services, installment loans, and protection of consumers who have debt in collections. Ontarians should have choice when it comes to their finances, and that includes the opportunity to access credit and other financial services. Mr. Speaker, we've listened to the people of this province. We have sought the expertise of other jurisdictions across the country, continent, and overseas. We are making an ongoing effort to explore all of the options available to us to strengthen protections for consumers from the risks of using alternative financial services. In speaking with consumers and the industry, it is clear that alternative financial services can be an important way for many people in our province to meet their financial obligations in the absence of low-cost alternatives to short-term credit. We understand that alternative financial services are seen as an important way to address financial needs in the absence of other options. We know that partners outside of government, such as traditional financial institutions and community agencies, are working hard to provide other options, and we applaud their work. Mr. Speaker, we are also working with municipalities across Ontario. We know some municipalities are taking steps to limit the number and regulate the locations of payday loan and check cashing outlets in their communities. In community meetings and consultation feedback, we heard concerns about how high concentrations of payday lenders affects local neighbourhoods. We heard the desire for more control where payday lenders operate in order to address community-level impacts. So we're working with our municipal partners at the Association of Municipalities of Ontario to explore how we can work together to address their concerns. Mr. Speaker, we have much to be proud of when it comes to protecting consumers in the marketplace. We've taken the time to listen to the people of our province. We've consulted businesses, consumers, and other interested parties such as community agencies. We have, Mr. Speaker, done our due diligence. We understand that alternative financial services are seen as an important way to address financial needs in the absence of other options. Our goal is to take every opportunity we can to strengthen protections for financially insecure consumers. To build a stronger foundation of consumer protection for the people in our province, Mr. Speaker and honourable colleagues, I invite you to support our Minister of Government and Consumer Services as we work to give people in our province the stronger protection they have asked for and they deserve. And Mr. Speaker, just to carry on and to provide a bit more background, as we said, a bit of historical context to the second reading of this bill. And as the Minister noted earlier, our government is committed to protecting consumers that include protecting Ontarians from a cycle of debt. In fact, in 2013, Mr. Speaker, the ministry committed to review the payday loan legislation. That review, Mr. Speaker, was expanded to include other types of high-cost alternative financial services, such as installment loans, check cashing, and rent-to-own services, as well as debt collection. Broader public consultation informed our approach to strengthening protections for consumers of alternative financial services and those who are struggling with debt. The proposed bill, Mr. Speaker, would protect consumers in several important ways, and we've heard the Minister outline a number of them, and I've touched on a number of them myself. Consumers with debt in collections would benefit from debt collection rules that apply more broadly, including applying them to debt purchasers. Consumers cashing government checks at alternative financial service providers would have more information and may benefit from a cap on the rate of check cashing services. Consumers cashing government checks at alternative financial service providers would have more information and may benefit from a cap a cap on the rate of check cashing services, consumers using rent-to-own services would benefit from a grace period for late payment and a right to reinstate the agreement under certain circumstances. Consumers using installment loans would benefit from cost control of certain fees, such as optional insurance. Mr. Speaker, consumers of payday loans would have to wait 7 days between payday loans, giving them more time to consider their options. And finally, Mr. Speaker, before I wrap up, they would also, those who borrow repeatedly would have a longer repayment period in certain circumstances. So, Mr. Speaker, again, I would urge my colleagues in the House to support this bill, Bill 156, the Alternative Financial Services Statute Law Amendment Act 2015, as we move it through the House. And I thank you for your time and attention.